Out at sea, Bonnie was casually trying to put on her lipstick when the crew suddenly started shouting her name. At first she thought something was wrong, but it turned out they had finally reached the island where Kuma was. The news electrified her. She rushed to anchor the ship, heart pounding with anticipation. The entire crew ran out, but waiting on the shore were Marines, weapons drawn and ready to make arrests. They shouted accusations, calling Bonnie's crew heartless criminals who left trails of injured elders and children wherever they went. The Marines claimed these cowards only preyed on the weak, and they were itching to open fire. But before a single bullet flew, Bonnie charged in like a force of nature, unleashing her age-piercing attack that instantly transformed the Marines into helpless old people and frightened children. With the threat neutralized, the crew began scouring the island, desperately searching for Kuma, but he was hiding, keeping his distance. When they couldn't find him, Kuma teleported far away. Bonnie was furious and heartbroken. They had come so close. She swore she would keep looking for Na too, believing that when she finally reunited with her father, he'd be overjoyed to hear that she had found Na on one of her travels. Meanwhile, somewhere else on the Grand Line, Luffy and the Straw Hats had just defeated Arlong's pirates, earning their captain his very first bounty, a staggering 30 million berries. Word of Luffy's success spread fast. Dragon headed straight for Logtown, now under the watchful protection of Captain Smoker. Far away, Ace was bragging about his younger brother's new bounty, unable to hide his pride. Jinbei was stunned. Luffy had defeated Arlong? Even Kuma smiled when he heard, feeling a strange pride himself. His daughter, Bonnie, and Dragon's son were both out there as pirates, chasing their dreams. Bonnie told her crew they could loot freely, but only from bad guys. To make sure Kuma recognized her someday, she even went as far as getting a piercing on her cheek. Her plan was simple: get famous, and he'd have to notice her. At least that's what she believed. Over on Egghead Island, Kuma walked past rows of newly completed pacifistas while Vegapunk struck up a conversation. The genius scientist asked if he'd heard about the kid who'd declare war on the world government. Kuma was shocked to discover that the boy was Dragon's son. The kid's name carried the weight of destiny: Monkey D. Luffy. Yet, even with his enormous brain, Vegapunk hadn't known the connection. Kuma calmly said there was no reason to hide this from him. After all, he'd soon have access to every memory Kuma possessed. He even remarked that Luffy reminded him of Na, his hero. Not long after, the Straw Hats defeated Gecko Moria, and Kuma himself appeared before them, acting on orders from the world government to eliminate the entire crew. He offered them a single chance to live: hand over Luffy's head. But as expected, every single Straw Hat refused. Kuma unleashed his power and blew up the entire island. What followed became one of the most legendary moments in One Piece history: Zoro's sacrifice, as he offered his life in Luffy's place. Kuma silently acknowledged the crew's loyalty. Dragon's son has some truly good comrades, he said. Not long after, Kuma received a mandatory summons from the Shichibukai, with a warning that failure to attend would cost him his Corsair title. The reason? Porcus D. Ace execution had been scheduled. The cheerful, laughing pirate would soon face death, an event certain to ignite a war with the Whitebeard pirates. Kuma said nothing, but he resolved to be there when the time came. Meanwhile, Bonnie's crew made it to the Sabaudi archipelago, where their captain was, as usual, stuffing her face. She complained loudly about how long it was taking for more pizza to arrive. What she didn't know was that Kuma was nearby, watching her through a window. To him, it felt like an elephant trying to hide behind a pole, utterly obvious yet completely hidden. This would be the last time he would ever see his daughter, and he was overwhelmed with pride. She had grown so strong, so independent. Then, chaos erupted. A pirate had punched a Tenryubito, and the entire archipelago went into panic mode. Kuma's shock deepened when he realized that it was at a human auction, and even worse, it was the Straw Hats at the center of the chaos, beating down the celestial dragons without hesitation. He could hardly believe it. They were risking everything to protect a fishman and a mermaid, something no one had dared to do in centuries. Kuma, he told himself, this is beyond betrayal. This is a declaration of war. And yet, instead of punishing them, he made his choice. He saved the Straw Hats, scattering them across the world. Each one was launched to a different island, forced to grow stronger. Luffy was crying his heart out, believing that he couldn't even protect a single crew member. But Kuma knew that wasn't true. He understood that Luffy and his crew weren't weak. They simply weren't ready yet to face the terrifying monsters of the new world. Still, Kuma had faith. He believed with absolute conviction that one day Luffy would save the world. Not long after, Saturn issued a chilling order to Vegapunk: install a self-destruct system inside Kuma. Saturn feared that without an elder present, Kuma might lose control, and it was his way of keeping him on a leash. Vegapunk, horrified, tried to bargain. He begged Saturn to preserve at least a fragment of Kuma's free will, but Saturn, with the cold precision of a true villain, rejected the plea. Absolutely nothing must remain, he declared, reminding Vegapunk that he was just a scientist, a tool to be used, not someone who could argue about morality. Vegapunk warned that if they erased everything, Kuma would never see Bonnie again. Saturn didn't care. He hung up without hesitation, like a man who had just slammed the final nail in someone's coffin. Kuma, instead of cursing Saturn, turned to Vegapunk and thanked him for his kindness. The old man froze, shocked, and asked, "Wait, how did you hear that conversation?" Then he realized the irony. He was the one who had given Kuma the ability to hear everything, even over vast distances. On that fateful day, Sentomaru refused to step foot on the island. He couldn't bear to watch what was about to happen, because this was the day Kuma would lose the final 100% of his free will. It wasn't just surgery, it was an execution in cold blood. Vegapunk's voice trembled with emotion as he said, "We've only known each other for 2 years, but they were good times." Then he informed Kuma that his first mission as a complete weapon would be to fight in the upcoming war against the Whitebeard pirates. Before losing himself completely, Kuma made one last request, a single mission after the war. He asked Vegapunk to program him to protect the Straw Hat ship until one of its members returned. Why? Because Luffy's actions had touched his very soul. Kuma said that Na might only be a myth, but if anyone could save the world and bring smiles to everyone, it would be Monkey D. Luffy. With that, Kuma prepared for his final act of defiance against fate. He created a complete copy of his memories. Those memories held everything: the day he was born, the day he lost his parents, the agony of being enslaved by the celestial dragons, the joy of meeting Jenny, and the happiness they shared until she was taken by the cruel sapphire scale disease. Then came the bittersweet years of raising little Bonnie, only to learn she had inherited the same disease and was given just 5 years to live. Kuma sacrificed everything: his body, his freedom, his identity, to save his beloved daughter, and he did it with pride, love, and a full heart. Once, Kuma had quietly asked Vegapunk, "Am I a burden to others?" But Vegapunk, unable to hold back his tears, told him the truth. Kuma's death, he said, would be a loss to everyone who cared about him. "You're a hero," Vegapunk cried, "not just to Bonnie, but to all of us." With a trembling hand and a heavy heart, Vegapunk pulled the lever that stripped Kuma of the last drop of freedom he had left. In his final moments, Kuma thanked Vegapunk for saving Bonnie and made one final request: "Please wish her a happy 10th birthday when you see her." And then, everything that was Bartholomew Kuma disappeared. Later, Bonnie would see all of Kuma's memories, his struggles, his sacrifices, and the unending pain he carried throughout his life. She couldn't hold back her tears. After seeing everything her father endured, her heart shattered completely. In the next episode, we return to Egghead. Bonnie, filled with rage and heartbreak, will be completely cornered by that monster Saturn, until a miracle happens. The real Kuma will appear, ready to fight and protect his daughter once again. Tell me, can you name a sadder backstory than Bartholomew Kuma's? I can't. From the moment he was born to this exact moment, no one in One Piece has endured as much pain as him. But after all this heartbreak, it's finally time for some good ol' action. If you want to know what happens next, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can hit our next milestone before the end of the year. Until then, peace out.